I remember in the early days of starting, we went to a speech or a talk with other founders. One of the founders was saying how all of his friends would go home in the evenings and they would watch Netflix, and he would come home and he would just pull out his laptop and he would work or code until he closed his laptop and went to sleep, like every single day. And he said that the rate at which he could build his business was just so much faster than even the friends that were building businesses, saying that sort of hunger and that dedication towards building was what gave him such a competitive advantage. And I remember thinking, we spent the first 6 months in our business where all we did was work. And I remember how, even after just 6 months, how hollow I felt. It was exciting, it was captivating, but I didn't realize how much I was sacrificing in friends and family and just with my life that was falling apart around me that I just didn't notice because I was so focused on the business. And started to make some changes in my life, started to braai in the evenings. There would certainly be an element of watching Netflix with the meal, and the episode needs to finish, right? So even though you finished your meal, you probably watch about an hour or two of TV in the evening. And this guy was saying, there's no TV. And then after 2 years of hard graft in Paarl, which was a very isolated environment, but one where we could really focus on the business, we decided to move closer to the city. We were worried about moving closer to the city because suddenly we were introducing more opportunity to have a social life, which of course would distract from the business, but was very important in many ways. And when we moved into the new house, we hadn't yet organized Wi-Fi. And so there was just no option of watching Netflix. It was myself, it was my co-founder, it was our head of design, and it was one of our engineers all living together. So working together, gymming together, living together, partying together. But what was so interesting was that without internet in the evenings, none of us would be watching TV. Instead, Brandon would play guitar, or we had a pool table, we would play pool, or we would sit outside and read, or just bake in the evening sun, or have a braai. And we were working just as hard as we were in Paarl, and now coming home in the evening with colleagues, and yet I was feeling so much more energized. And I realized that maybe, this unwinding through watching TV wasn't giving me the relaxation that I thought it was, or the energy levels that I thought it was. So I started reading old David Goggins and Matthew Walker and the 5 a.m. Club. And I started to socially engineer my life about how do I get energy, how do I perform. I started waking up at 4, I was then gymming for 2 hours, I was having some time to myself before getting to work. I'll get to work before most people, and I'll have time in silence to just focus on what I wanted to focus on. Then the meetings would start and the chaos would start, and I learned to love the different parts of my day and to recognize that having those different parts would give me energy in different ways. I'd be extremely strict about my sleep routine. I would probably come home at 7, spend the hour cooking and go straight to bed, recognizing that the week routine was giving me the energy I needed. And then I would actually take weekends to go exercise. We would go mountain biking or surfing or hiking. And some weekends we would work. And it was quite a fulfilling experience. And that lasted quite a long time. But I think one of the challenges of that was, again, the sacrifice. So because I was working so intensely, literally from morning until I went to sleep, I viewed it as a routine to allow me to perform. And at no point in that routine had I prioritized any time for friends or family. And so I had about 500 unread conversations from people. Most of them had long since given up on trying to get hold of me or make plans with me or to do anything with me. So my life was completely centered around the business. And even with my sort of love partners, I'd had conversations with them where I said the business comes first. And I put the business ahead of myself, my mental health, my relationships, my friends, I put it ahead of them. And naturally, the relationships would fail. And it got to a point of unsustainability within the business where, I thought that if I engineered myself enough, I would be able to just constantly grind harder than my competitors. And we were growing so much faster than our competitors. And so I was getting this reward for the sacrifice that I was doing. And it wasn't a monetary reward. In fact, we were really bootstrap founders, and so we were living a very frugal life. But what was so fulfilling was seeing all of the new faces around me and the new challenges and the new learning, and that constant environment of there's more to learn was what was so captivating. It pulled me into the office every day. But one of the challenges was just this unawareness of the degradation of health that was going on around, whether it was my physical or my mental health. And, to keep a long story short, there came a point after 4 years where I started to analyze where the business was going and how long we could sort of keep building at that pace. And once we sort of started to model things forward, we were maturing as first-time founders, we realized that the business was going to fail. And it would require some drastic pivots and working a lot harder than we were already working, even though we were working so hard. And so there went any time in my weekends or my evenings or to pretend like I had friends. And so it was just this constant grind to get Specno back onto a position where it wouldn't fail. And it was isolating because I couldn't tell the other managers or the leaders within the company just why it was going to fail. They were under too much pressure to just keep the beast going, and I needed it to keep going while I could figure out how to change it. Eventually I took a break, and that break was a result of just having nothing more to give. I said, if I don't take this break, I don't know if I can show up tomorrow. So I don't really have another choice. And that break really did give me the space to realize that if this thing had to fail tomorrow, I would start it all again, and I would do it again, and I would sacrifice just as much. So instead of, not showing up, just radically do whatever you need to do to show up. I decided to give up alcohol, but also to prioritize my friends. So, I wouldn't necessarily go drinking with them, but I would prioritize going on a hike with them. I would start to prioritize travel and really putting effort into expanding Specno into other countries, because I knew that was a gamified reward for me. If I could build Specno into another country and view it as an opportunity to travel, I could draw energy and motivation from that. And one of my travels, despite my sobriety and not being able to ask them to go for a drink, I met a girl and we went for ice cream. And I remember it was the first time in a long time where I had just not thought about the business for about 4 hours. And that literally the first time since starting the business. Otherwise, I was obsessed. There was no time where I couldn't think about the business. It was either stress or excitement, but one way or another, I was just thinking about the business. And when I met this girl, we started to talk about ambitions and motivation and where we want to go with life. And it was the first time where I started to realize what would make me happy in life and what I needed. And she almost allowed me to realize the importance of that, and using it as a North Star and a deciding factor. Am I building this in a way that's sustainable for me? Will I be able to give this my all for the next 10, 20, 50 years, if that's what it's going to take? And the amazing thing is that, I realized that I want to make her a priority. I want to prioritize myself. And I thought that would be a huge sacrifice to the business. But as soon as I knew what I stood for, I started to bring that forward into meetings, whether that was in sales or recruitment or talking to investors. And the response that I got from that was absolutely incredible. It was, this is who we are, this is what we're building, this is where we're going. Are you on board with this or are you not? And as soon as I could articulate that and I could articulate the why, people got behind it. And I just found myself with more energy than I had had in years. And so for the last year, it's been so weird for me to allow myself time off, to allow myself to spend time with friends and family and to recuperate. But to know that I'm showing up at work more determined, more focused, and working harder than ever, and pushing the business to new levels that we've never gone before. And I think that comes down to two things. It comes to recognizing when you need to prioritize yourself and understanding your foundational pillars, but also knowing that there is true sacrifice in the business. I don't think I could have built the business at the speed I could had I not sacrificed so much. But I'm also learning when, how often to sacrifice, and that will constantly go through evolution. So just being hyper aware of the needs of life, the needs of business, and being willing to change and adapt to those needs. So I don't think my routine in my life will ever be normal. I don't think it will ever just stay the same, but I am dedicated to socially engineering my life and my surroundings to maximizing what I can give. And again, I believe in this mission more than ever now, and I know we're going to achieve it. So I'm inspired, I'm motivated, I'm ready to show up, and I know the team is. So we're going to achieve what we set out to achieve.